My name is Scott Blaze, and today I want to take you on the journey of how I saved my first $10. Not inherited, not won, not gifted, but earned and intentionally set aside. And let me tell you, it wasn't a straight path. It was messy, it was frustrating, and at times, it felt impossible, but it changed my life forever. Back then, I wasn't making six figures. I wasn't an entrepreneur with multiple income streams. I was a regular guy with a regular paycheck, trying to keep my head above water. Rent, bills, groceries, gas. By the time payday came and went, there never seemed to be anything left. The turning point came one evening when I opened my bank app and saw a balance of $72.43. It was 5 days before payday. I had no emergency fund, no safety net, just anxiety. That night, I realized something had to change. Not just my income, but my entire mindset. So I sat down with a notebook and asked myself two questions. Where is my money going? And what am I trying to build? That was the beginning of everything. I started with awareness. For 30 days, I tracked every single expense, no excuses. No rounding down, no, I'll start tomorrow. Every coffee, every impulse buy, every recurring subscription. What I discovered shocked me. I wasn't broke. I was bleeding money through 1,000 tiny leaks. I was spending $200 a month eating out, $60 on unused subscriptions, and at least $300 on things I didn't remember buying. That's when it hit me. My first $10 wasn't out of reach. I'd already earned it, I just wasn't keeping it. So the first step was plugging the leaks. I canceled subscriptions I didn't use. I started cooking simple meals at home. I gave myself a weekly cash allowance for fun spending, and when it ran out, that was it. No overdrafting, no credit cards, no justifications. But saving isn't just about cutting. It's about clarity. I gave every dollar a job. I started using the 50-30-20th framework. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and debt. But in my case, I flipped it. I saved first. Before I paid a single bill, I moved money into a separate savings account. It was automatic, it was consistent, and it was sacred. That habit alone changed my entire financial identity. I stopped saying, I can't save, and started saying, I'm the kind of person who saves. Even if it was just $20. I saved something every week. The momentum built, and so did my confidence. Of course, there were setbacks. A medical bill, a car repair, a birthday party I forgot to plan for. Each one felt like a test. But I refused to let those moments undo my progress. I reminded myself, this is not failure. It's life. And I have a plan. As the months passed, I got creative. I sold stuff I didn't use. I freelanced on the side. I called my insurance company and negotiated a lower premium. I brought lunch to work. I paused major purchases until I hit my monthly savings goal. I didn't deprive myself, I disciplined myself. And then something shifted. I stopped chasing short-term pleasure. I started craving long-term peace. It was about 6 months in when I hit my first big milestone, $1 in savings. It felt surreal. I had never had that much set aside in my life. But I didn't stop. I doubled down. Before we go any further, if you're finding this story helpful or inspiring in any way, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd take a moment to like, comment, share this podcast with someone who needs it, or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Your support means the world and helps this message reach more people who are on their own financial journey. Now, let's talk about the mindset that made all the difference. The biggest breakthrough I had was this: saving isn't just a habit, it's an identity. If you think of yourself as someone who's bad with money, you'll sabotage every progress you make. But when you see yourself as someone who values security, who is intentional, who has a vision, that's when the shift happens. I stopped focusing on what I was giving up and started focusing on what I was gaining. Freedom, options, sleep, confidence. Every time I saved money, I wasn't just padding a number. I was casting a vote for the person I wanted to become. I started gamifying my savings. I'd challenge myself: can I save an extra $10 this week? Can I hit $100 before Friday? I even made a savings thermometer in my notebook where I colored in the amount saved toward $10. It may sound silly, but visual progress works. I created a why so strong it could carry me through the boring days. For me, it was peace. I wanted to wake up and not feel fear, not feel pressure. I wanted space to breathe. That was my vision. Let me tell you what really helped: building systems. I made saving automatic. I opened a high-yield savings account in a different bank than my checking account so it wasn't easy to touch. I set up weekly transfers. I didn't leave it to willpower. I made it frictionless. I also gave my savings a name. Not just savings account, but Freedom Fund. It reminded me why I was doing this. It wasn't just money, it was a future. When I hit $2, I remember looking at my balance and thinking, this is working, but I also knew I had to stay consistent. That's where most people fall off. They hit a milestone, celebrate, and then coast. But I wanted more than a moment, I wanted momentum. So I kept going. I raised my savings percentage. I funneled every extra dollar, gifts, bonuses, refunds, straight into that account. I celebrated every $1 with a non-monetary reward. A day off, a hike, a quiet morning with a book. Something that fed my soul without draining my account. Along the way, I learned to say no. No to last-minute invites that didn't fit my plan. No to stuff that didn't align with my values. No to comparison. Comparison will kill your savings faster than any impulse buy. Don't measure your progress against someone else's highlight reel. Measure it against who you were last month. At $5, I felt invincible. That account was no longer just a number. It was proof. Proof that I could change. That I could stick to something. That I was building something real. But the journey wasn't perfect. There were slow months, unexpected expenses, times I wanted to give up. But I had built a rhythm. I had built resilience. And that's what carried me through. By the time I reached $8, I could feel the shift in how I walked through the world. I wasn't stressed about money. I didn't panic when a bill came. I had space. I had choices. And finally, on a quiet Friday morning, I checked my account, and there it was. $10.021.47. I just stared at the screen. Not in disbelief, but in quiet, grounded pride. It wasn't flashy. No balloons or confetti. Just me, my coffee, and a sense of peace I had never known before. That's what saving your first $10 gives you. Not just money, but proof, discipline, self-trust. You start to believe in yourself differently. You start to act differently. You start to lead your life, not just survive it. Here's something I wish more people understood. Saving money isn't about what you're earning, it's about what you're keeping. I've met people making $200 a year who live paycheck to paycheck. And I've met janitors and teachers with 5-figure savings because they learned to prioritize wisely. So much of this comes down to mindset. When I was first starting, I had to rewrite my internal script. I used to tell myself, I'll save when I make more. But that future never came, because I hadn't built the habit. Now I tell people, the habit must come before the income. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. One of my favorite principles that helped me stay consistent is what I call the 10th of October 10 method. It goes like this. Every time I receive money, no matter how small, I immediately split off 10% into savings, 10% into giving, and 10% into investing or future planning. The rest is for living. It's a simple rule, but it trained me to handle money with purpose. It wasn't about the amount, it was about the automation of intention. And as I practiced this rhythm, my decisions became easier. I stopped debating every purchase. I knew my essentials were covered, my future was funded, and my values were honored. When people ask me now, Scott, how do I get started? I always give the same advice. Start with clarity. Track every dollar for 30 days. Not to judge, but to understand. Then choose a savings target. Not a huge one, maybe $500, maybe $1. Give it a name, set a deadline, then automate the process. The biggest mistake I see? People trying to save whatever is left at the end of the month. Don't do that. Pay yourself first. Make saving a line item, not an afterthought. And keep your savings separate. Not just physically, but mentally. Don't treat it like extra spending money. Treat it like oxygen for your future. Another tool that helped? Community. I joined an online group where people shared their savings wins. It kept me inspired, kept me grounded, reminded me that I wasn't alone. When you surround yourself with people who value what you value, discipline becomes easier. I also learned to ask better questions. Instead of, can I afford this? I started asking, is this the best use of my money right now? That one shift saved me thousands. I built rituals. Every Sunday, I'd sit down and review my spending. Every month, I'd check my progress toward my goal. Every quarter, I'd celebrate my wins with something meaningful, not expensive, but intentional. And through that rhythm, I created stability. Let's be real, life doesn't get easier, but with savings, you get stronger. You gain the confidence to walk away from a bad job, the space to support a loved one in crisis, the power to say no because you already have enough. I learned that every dollar I saved was buying me time, and time is the one thing you can never get back. So when I finally hit that $10, it wasn't just about pride. It was about freedom. I had options. I had space. I had peace. But the truth is, $10 was just the beginning. It wasn't a finish line. It was a foundation. Because once you prove to yourself you can do it once, you can do it again. Faster, smarter, with more purpose. That's when money stops being a source of stress and starts becoming a tool for alignment. That's when you stop asking, how much can I save, and start asking, what kind of life do I want to build? And that's where the real journey begins. Let me share something that I didn't expect. Saving my first $10 gave me more emotional stability than anything I'd ever experienced. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of the unexpected. A broken phone? No panic. A trip to visit family? No stress. My world felt quieter, safer, more within reach. That emotional shift is often more valuable than the money itself. Most of us grow up thinking that money is just numbers. But really, money is safety, it's choice, it's freedom, it's the ability to say no to what drains you and yes to what fuels you. When you begin saving, you start living on purpose. I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. I noticed how different environments made me spend more, how certain emotions triggered spending, how boredom could cost me $40. But instead of shame, I chose curiosity. I asked, what's really going on here? And every answer brought me closer to freedom. I simplified my spending. I stopped chasing the latest. I wore the same shoes until they wore out. I used my phone until it truly died. Not because I couldn't afford more, but because I valued calm over clutter. And I learned that every unnecessary purchase was stealing from a more peaceful future. But saving didn't make me rigid. It made me generous. Because once I felt secure, I could give without fear. I could support a friend. I could donate to a cause. I could be open-hearted, not tight-fisted. That's the secret. Savings expands your capacity to give. Now I won't lie, there were temptations along the way. Friends buying new cars, vacations posted on social media, fancy dinners I couldn't justify. And sometimes, I gave in. I'm human, but I always came back to the plan, to the vision, to the foundation I was building. And over time, that vision grew, from $10 to $20. From short-term security to long-term wealth. From reacting to planning. What I want you to take away is this. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be persistent. You don't need a perfect income. You need a clear purpose. And you don't need to do this alone. Start with what you have. Use what you know, and build from there. There is no shame in starting small. In fact, it's the best way, because small habits compound. They grow roots. They build character. And that character? That's your greatest asset. Every time you save instead of spend, you're rewriting your future. Every time you delay gratification, you're declaring independence from chaos. Every time you say no to what doesn't matter, you say yes to what does. So whether you're trying to save your first $100 or your first $10, the principles are the same. Clarity, consistency, identity, simplicity, purpose. Let your money reflect who you are, not just what you earn. Because at the end of the day, this journey isn't just about money. It's about becoming someone who makes decisions based on values, not pressure. It's about living a life that feels aligned, not rushed. And it's about proving to yourself that you are capable of change. That you are worthy of peace. That you are strong enough to build a future that feels good to wake up to. That's what I discovered on the road to my first $10. And that's what I want for you. So as we wrap this up, let me leave you with the most important lesson I learned on this journey. Your first $10 isn't about numbers. It's about who you become in the process. You become someone who pays attention. Someone who thinks ahead. Someone who doesn't wait for life to get easier, but chooses to become stronger. That's the real win. And if you're sitting there thinking it's too late or too hard, let me tell you something, it's not. You can begin today. You can begin now. Start by looking at your last 30 days. Get honest with yourself. Not judgmental, just honest. What did your money say about your values? What would you change if you could start fresh? Then create a plan that excites you. Not one that feels like punishment, but one that feels like self-respect. Make it visual, make it emotional, make it matter. And then simplify. Automate your savings. Set up reminders. Track your wins. Celebrate the tiny victories. Because this is not a sprint. This is a rhythm, a process, a commitment to a better version of you. One that saves not out of fear, but out of vision. One that doesn't wait for permission, but takes ownership. One that understands that wealth is not just about what you keep, but about who you become along the way. Saving $10 taught me that I didn't need more stuff. I needed more clarity, more intention, more belief in myself. And once you experience that, once you taste what it feels like to have financial breathing room, you'll never go back. Because peace is addictive, progress is powerful, and purpose makes it all worthwhile. So go, take the first step, then the next, then another, and one day, maybe not far from now, you'll open your banking app, see 5 digits, and smile. Not because of the number, but because of the story behind it. That's the kind of story worth writing. And it begins today. Thank you for walking this path with me. You've got everything it takes. Now go prove it to yourself. This is Scott Blaze, and I'll see you in the next episode. Just before we end, let's talk about legacy. When I saved my first $10, I thought I was just helping myself. But then I noticed something powerful. I was changing the way my family viewed money. I was shifting conversations. I was modeling consistency. I became the one people asked for advice. And not because I was perfect, but because I had proof. That's what real wealth does, it ripples. When you change your story with money, you give others permission to do the same. You lead by example, quietly, steadily, powerfully. So don't underestimate what you're building here. It's bigger than a number. It's a foundation, a mindset, a message. And years from now, someone you care about might look at your story and think, if they could do it, so can I. That's how change spreads. That's how legacies are born. So go save with purpose, live with intention, and walk with quiet confidence, knowing that every dollar you keep is a step toward the life and legacy you're meant to build. So wherever you are, starting with spare change, climbing out of debt, or building toward your next milestone, know this: your discipline today is designing your freedom tomorrow. This journey is worth it. You are worth it, and your future self will thank you every single day. Keep going. You're closer than you think. Let me take you a little deeper, because I want this message to sit with you long after this episode ends. When I hit that $10 mark, it wasn't just about the bank statement. It was the way I carried myself. My shoulders weren't tense. My decisions weren't rushed. I was no longer trying to impress anyone with things. I was focused on becoming someone I respected. That's what this journey had taught me. You start thinking differently. Instead of asking, "Can I buy this?" you ask, "Do I still want this after I've slept on it?" Instead of looking for deals, you start looking for alignment. You realize peace is a better return than anything you can put on a card. You stop craving more stuff and start craving more stillness. And that stillness, that's what wealth feels like when it's done right. It's not yachts or Rolexes. It's walking into a store and not needing to buy anything to feel valuable. It's looking at your calendar and realizing your money is giving you time back. It's having space to pause, to heal, to choose. That's what that first $10 did for me. It redefined my relationship with life. And the impact didn't stop with me. I started talking about money openly, with friends, with family, not from a place of ego, but from service. I helped others create plans. I shared my systems, and people began to shift. Because when one person takes control, others notice. The biggest compliment I ever received wasn't about how much I saved. It was when a friend told me, "You helped me believe it was possible." That's the power of your story. And I want that for you too. This is more than just financial advice. It's about identity, about legacy, about deciding that you will no longer let chaos run your life. that you will build structure. Not fear it, that you will lead yourself first. Even when no one's watching. That's what this podcast is for. Not to throw more theory at you, but to walk with you. To share stories. To build strategies. And to remind you, over and over, that your next level is already within you. Saving $10 was never really about the money. It was about integrity, about alignment, about remembering that discipline is not a burden, it's a gateway. And freedom is waiting on the other side. So let this be the moment you say yes. Yes to the vision, yes to the work, yes to the journey, and I'll be here every step of the way. This is Scott Blaze, and I believe in who you're becoming. Because the truth is, you don't need to be extraordinary to save your first $10. You just need to be consistent. You need to be willing to start. And once you do, the rest unfolds. Not easily, but steadily. So wherever you are, start there. Start now, and let this be the moment everything changes. You were made for more. Go prove it, $1. One decision, one day at a time.